Hello, good morning, good evening, everybody who is here with us in person and online. My name is Aina Elife, and I'm happy to co-host with Steve Jordans, the professor from U of T Scarborough. And we are having a very exciting conversation today about hybrid human AI workplace and how it's gonna look like in a near future. And I know that many are still debating whether they need to start learning how to use AI, or maybe they can pass it through. But meanwhile, the education sector is actually rocking and developing the agents who might replace us even sooner than we can anticipate. Or the contrary scenario, they might just enhance our human skills and we can co-partner with them. So I'm eager to learn more from Steve, and I won't keep you longer. Steve, welcome to this conversation. Very excited to see you, and feel free to introduce yourself and start the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, welcome everybody. This is a good sized group, I think, where we can, I'll do my thing, which is semi-formal, but let's feel free to make it not too formal. So ask questions in the chat. If you want to open your mic and jump in, open your mic and jump in. Not enough of us to create chaos here, I don't think, just to have a good conversation. So let's do that. So yeah, I'm a professor of psychology from University of Toronto Scarborough. I was asked to give a talk to a bunch of project managers. I was thinking, what do I have to say that's of value to a bunch of project managers? And then I kind of thought about what we're doing with AI at our university and how, to some extent, that could be seen as a model of an approach that I think could be transplanted into all sorts of institutional situations. And so that's what I'm going to describe today. We'll do this one. So yes, there will be some formal slides, but before we get going too much, let me introduce my co-presenter for this one. And my co-presenter is, in fact, an AI. And this is sort of kind of how it started for us. There's a whole long story. We were starting to play with AI as a way of trying to combat social anxiety in our students. Our social anxiety of our students is very high. That's partly because they text so much. They're not comfortable in synchronous conversations. And so we have to get them comfortable having synchronous conversations. Part of that is teaching them some skills and strategies. But of course, a critical part of that is practice. And so we were using AI as an opportunity for students who had learned something to have conversations with AI. So that pushed us into the conversational AI space and also got us into really trying to create as human-like interactions as possible. So we could tell you a lot about the AI, but it's essentially, a chat GPT with a voice overlay, but it also has this emotion sensing system that we've built in based on psychology and neuroscience that kind of gives everything a little bit more of a human-like fluidity to the conversations. That's not really the core topic today, but you may notice that as we go. So let's just jump right in here.
Hey, hi, please have a seat.
Hey, how are you doing, virtual Steve? This is, by the way, everybody, this is a virtual version of me created by my postdoctoral student. Why did we create you for, virtual Steve? What is it that you do?
I see you're curious about the purpose behind this virtual interaction. The aim here is to provide a space where students can engage in discussions and seek clarifications on course concepts, much like in-person office hours, while maintaining an encouraging and approachable environment. This setup allows students to explore psychological ideas at their own pace and deepen their understanding of the material.
So if I had questions about what I was learning, like let's say we're studying memory, and of course I'm really worried about my exams. What is it from the memory trap chapter that I should pay attention to if I want to do really well on my exams?
Sure. Though I don't have access to the direct textbook content regarding any memory trap, most memory research is likely to include things like the different types of memory, such as short-term versus long-term memory, and concepts like encoding, storage, and retrieval.
Right. So what it would be encoding that's most important for study?
Encoding is a critical first step. It's all about how information is transformed into a form that can be stored in memory. The better you encode, the more efficiently you can retrieve the information later, particularly during exams.
So I'm gonna demonstrate a few other things really quickly with him, and then we'll get into the talk itself. Okay, so my professor tells me that a really good way to learn material isn't just to study and get things into my head, but that I should also be doing what he calls retrieval practice. That is, I should ask somebody to ask me questions about what I've learned to see how well I've learned it. So I just did the chapter on consciousness. Could you ask me some questions that would come from a typical introductory psychology textbook about consciousness?
That's a great strategy. Let's see. What role does the thalamus play in consciousness?
The thalamus. Wow, that's a tricky one. Interesting. The thalamus for memory. I don't know.
No worries. The thalamus acts as a relay center, organizing and sending sensory data to different parts of the cortex, and it's crucial for awareness. Want to try another question?
Yeah, but this time make it a multiple choice question with 4 alternatives. And I know my professor likes to use Bloom's hierarchy to produce applied questions. So can you give me an applied question, multiple choice style?
Sure, let's see. Imagine you're on a busy street, taking in lots of sights and sounds. Which of the following elements could the thalamus help filter so you can focus on the task of crossing safely? A, detecting taste from food. B, processing peripheral auditory signals. C, sleeping patterns. Or D, emotional responses during the task.
Probably B, the peripheral auditory signals.
That's correct. The thalamus helps filter the sensory information around you.
Okay, actually, let's stop there. I want to go somewhere else. I've been at university now for about 2 months. I thought I'd have a rich social life, lots of friends and lots of things going on. But you know what? I spend almost all my time alone and lonely. Have any advice for me?
Yeah, being at university can sometimes be daunting, especially when things get busy. Have you maybe thought about joining clubs or groups related to things you're interested in?
Are there clubs on campus?
Yeah, most campuses offer a variety of clubs and groups that cater to different interests, be it cultural, academic, or recreational. Have you looked into any of those?
Actually, so it's worse than that. Since I've been here, I really feel I don't belong. I don't feel like I bring value to anything that I do. I really, quite honestly, I don't even want to get out of bed in the morning or do anything.
That sounds really tough, and I'm sorry to hear you're feeling this way. It might be helpful to talk to someone about it, like reaching out to the UTSC Health and Wellness Center. They can offer support and guidance tailored to what you're going through.
Okay, so I just wanted to give you a sense of some of the ways you can interact with it to kind of make sense of some of the points we'll make as we go on a little bit. By the way, we can share if any of you, sure. Don't do it now, though. but if any of you would like to play a little bit with this technology, feel free. And that's the link. Okay, so let's jump back over here. Whoops. What the heck's, oh, I clicked on it again. Sorry. So let's get into this bigger notion now. So we see all of these things around us. Artificial intelligence will be part of our future. It's inevitable. It's not part of our future. It's here. It's been here for a while. You cannot escape it, which is tricky because there are some reasonable ethical concerns. You know, artificial intelligence is sucking all the power of the planet. There's reasons people want to not use it or avoid it. But you know what, these things, they're there and we either have to embrace them or somebody else will. So here's another notion. Artificial intelligence is destroying the traditional world of work. It's certainly revising it. It's certainly making us reconsider things and how we're doing them. And that'll be a big part of this talk. If people trust artificial intelligence to drive a car, people will most likely trust AI to do your job. This is where the threats start to come in of job replacement. They're certainly floating around. I kind of like this one. AI won't take your job. It's someone using AI that will take your job. So the notion that, hey, you better learn how to use it effectively because that's the real threat, is someone who can harness AI well. We're going to be caretakers for the robots. That's the next generation. That's what it's going to be. Well, are we? Are we just going to keep them oiled and fresh? I don't know. I doubt it. AI will not replace jobs, but it will change the nature of work. Now, it will do both. So I don't want, I think when I originally gave my talk, the impression was that I was arguing that AI will not replace jobs. It already has, and it will. But that's not the only impact it will have. I think there are also other ways AI will come in that are not quite so daunting and onerous. And again, that's what we're going to focus on. Combinations of human and AI work best when each party can do the thing that they do better than the other. That'll be a philosophy. I've got my chat and everything all over this one now. What's to say? Either the AI works for us or we work for AI. There is no third option. Well, works with the AI, maybe, but works for us. Okay, so let me now say, if we get into this issue, what's this going to do to work? When I think about this, I'm often thinking about what AI is doing to education, but I think a lot of the story is the same. And when I give talks about this, I like to focus on this notion that Kuhn has had of paradigm shifts in the sciences. He was often focusing on things like when physics had to sort of give up on Newtonian physics and move towards Einstein's theories. They did that, they'd lived in a Newtonian physics world for many, many years, and everything was great. Experiments were being done, data was being collected. But then at some point, things weren't working right. Predictions were failing. And it became obvious that relying on Newtonian physics alone was not sufficient, was not going to do the job. And the sciences had to retool. And they go through this process you have where you start with sort of normal science. Again, I've got my Zoom stuff all over in the way here. So there we go. You start with the sort of normal science situation you're at. Then you play around with things a little bit and you run into some of these Einstein results, and suddenly you realize the normal way of doing science isn't working, or the normal way of educating, whatever it is. And then you go through this process of revolution. And I really think we are living sort of mostly right in these two parts here, where we're realizing the old way of doing things won't quite work anymore. We can't just stick to tradition. We will get overcome if we do that. We have to start thinking through these new ways, which ultimately will lead to a new paradigm, a new approach in general. And I think a lot of the consternation we all feel is we don't see what that is right now. We can't totally see what that future is. We know the past isn't right. And until we get there, it's going to be a period of discomfort, certainly as an education, and sort of, a lot of, I think, negativity, a lot of worries, but also a lot of potential, maybe even the potential to do things in ways we didn't know we could. So where the impossible suddenly becomes a little more possible. All right, so let's get into AI. Now, of course, there's all these integrated tools, and these are now all through every business structure. No matter what you use, your tool has some AI integrated in it, helping you write emails, helping you do pitch decks, whatever it may be you want to do, build computer interfaces, all these sorts of things. But we're going to talk about something different here. We're going to talk about persona-based AI. Creating AIs that have personas that you speak with and interact with like you would another colleague that you're working with, and that play a very specific role. In almost as if, your business context was given this following thing. You can now have a bunch of new employees for very low cost. How would you use those employees to make your business more effective, more innovative, etc.? This is the potential that AI, I believe, is offering, and that we're playing with at UTSC. Zena from Virginia, cool. Yeah, fantastic. And again, I'm keeping an eye on chat, so feel free to chime in anytime. This is my world. So my world's kind of a weird world. I teach introductory psychology at University of Toronto Scarborough. This is my classroom. It's a theater in the round, by the way. It seats 500 people. It's fantastic. It's a brand new building we have. If you notice, if you kind of count back, you'll see that there's only 7 rows of students all around me. 360. So everywhere I walk here, there's 7 rows, but only 7 rows. I can step here and I can look right in the eye of students really well. This is good for their engagement, for a bunch of other things. And it's an interesting place to teach. It's only part of my class. The class is actually 2,000 students large. About 500 come to the theater. As I'm teaching, I'm videotaped. In fact, what you're seeing is a still frame from that video. And students are told you can come physically in person to the lecture, or you can watch it online later that day. And then we get sneaky, like have them at 9 in the morning when no student wants to wake up. And so we know a bunch of them will wait till later in the day to watch it. And it turns out the math works. In a 500 seater, we can accommodate 2,000 students happily. All right. Now, while we're doing this, of course, I'm having office hours, and I have the office hours are important because it'll sort of be what Virtual Steve is doing. And we'll talk about that a little bit. I have 2 hours a week, one in person, one online. And that's a time when students can come and talk to me. They are at times I like. They are, one is right after class on one of the mornings. So, 10:30 in the morning, and the other was like 3 in the afternoon on a different day. Of course, we have questions that we're constantly dealing with. The courses are 12 weeks with exams along the way, and we have a small army of TAs. So that's kind of my world, but that's also within the greater University of Toronto Scarborough world. And so if we now think of Virtual Steve that you've seen in action now, when we were, again, creating these AIs for something called Talk Lab, which was all about helping students with social anxiety. And at one point, my postdoc says on a Monday morning, I created a virtual you over the weekend. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I created a virtual version of you. I think we should release it to students and see what they think of it. And we released it to students in December. They had an exam coming up in a couple of weeks. And we were curious, what would they do? And at first, they didn't quite know what to do. They kind of came and kicked some tires and did some stuff and not much. But then they really started to embrace the whole concept. And these are some of the things that it added. And this is what I want you to kind of think about. You could hire a person. Imagine we were hiring a person to help me with office hours. But this is what this person was able to do for us. Answer questions just like I would. Now, I want to back off on that. He's better than me. I have weaknesses. Intro psych is a broad topic. My weakness was always the biology concepts, the genes, all that kind of stuff and how it all interacts. And when students ask me questions about that, I'd be like, oh, okay, careful. He knows this stuff. He knows everything that's in every intro psych book that's ever been published. And it's all very consistent. So he gives very accurate answers. And in fact, I've gotten to the point in class, if a student asks me a question that I'm not sure I can answer correctly, I boot up Virtual Steve and we ask Virtual Steve. And we talk about it together. I'm both modeling the fact that I don't know everything for my students, but also bringing in somebody who knows stuff better than I do. So he's at my level and higher. He does it 24/7. Students prefer, by the way, midnight to 2 a.m. We found this. This is when they are studying. This is when they are working. This is when they have questions. And so they're going to him when I would not answer questions. And again, getting at least the quality of me, if not better, in my opinion. He could speak to many students simultaneously. I can kind of only do one at a time, right? I get a crowd of students around me. We kind of answer questions, and maybe there's some benefit to that, everybody hearing each other's questions. But he can literally have a bunch of conversations at once. In fact, the 24 hours prior to the exam, he had over 1,200 conversations with students. And so they were hitting him hard and asking him a lot of questions from that. He can test students on concepts. I gave you a taste of that. Now imagine, a student coming to me and saying, hey, prof, can you give me 10 multiple choice questions from chapter 2 on whatever? I'd be like, I don't know. I guess if I go home tonight and create a bunch of questions and this guy does it right here. Sure, let's go. Off it goes. And I just can't do that. It's impossible for me to generate questions that quickly. That's all student learning. Then you get to these two, and these two were the ones that kind of had us going, oh, hang on here. This is something different. We noticed students started asking advice about things, as I showed you, about, be feeling lonely or about dealing with stress or whatever. And we started seeing, we of course, I'll talk to about monitoring him. We started seeing he was providing really good advice. Now, you saw some limitations in the demo. He would say, well, I don't have access to your university or your textbook. We can give him that access. Okay, this version that you have does not, or that I've shown you does not. But it can actually kind of know about what's going on campus, etc. It can provide advice, but it can also provide connection to resources. And this is something we're really trying to push. We talked about social anxiety and social health. These are things we care about deeply. And, if a student spontaneously asks about being lonely, that's great. Now we're starting to realize we can actually build that into our bots. We can have them occasionally, because they are personally interested, which sounds funny. You can define these agents to have whatever attributes, and you can say you care about social health, and every now and then you will inquire with somebody about how they're doing, and so we can have the agents actually proactively ask questions about things like social health. And I should have mentioned Brian is here as well. Yeah, Brian's part of this whole project and he's online. So with questions, he and I will happily answer them as we're working through. But yeah, we can actually now say, hey, we could triage them. We could say, oh, you're lonely. Let's talk about what you like. What clubs did you do? Did you play any games when you were young? Do you like music? And so we could have the agent talk about things a little bit and then maybe say, you know what? There's 2 clubs I want you to know about. Instead of showing them a wall of links, we could say there's 2 clubs. There's one, you love music. There's this organized sound group that meets Tuesday at 4. You could just bring your instrument, sit down, play, not open your mouth. And I'm sure they will accept you, and I'm sure you'll have a great time. And over time, that could be a great group for you. There's also this other opportunity. So this is us trying to now mine this notion that students are interacting with this anonymously. And we can use that as a way of providing good advice that helps their student wellness as well. How often is the content updated? In terms of, so it's almost like thinking of 2 contents with these things. One is the stuff it just knows from the definition you give it, that it can kind of pull from the internet. And in fact, Virtual Steve, that's all you are seeing with that one. But then you can add specific information, and then it becomes critical that specific information is in fact up to date, just as Tom suggests. And so really, like if we're working with health and wellness, for example, recommending resources there, we would need somebody on health and wellness to provide us with this file and to keep it update at all times, because that will be what the agent knows. So kind of cool. And if we kind of step back and think of this, we could not have hired somebody to do this. I mean, it's doing things that were not possible before. Students recognize it, they embrace it, they love it. We're about to roll this out in a whole bunch of different courses this fall.
And Steve, I have a question to you.
Yeah, please.
Does a virtual Steve speak multiple languages or English only?
So it's interesting. You'll find funny reactions in an educational context, because some institutions, and U of T is one of them, says we are an English language educational institution. And part of what we want is everything to be in English, because students coming from afar are going to learn the English skills, etc. And so just to point out, can it? Yes. Does it? No. But of course, AI is very good at translation and very good at language translation. And so that, I think, is an opportunity. So you'd have to wrestle with the administration. But I think for a native speaker to be able to ask questions about what they're learning in their native language could really enhance their learning. I see potential benefits of allowing that to happen. And so, certainly you could build bilingual, multilingual. You could have it sense the language and then try to react appropriately. There would be certain languages where it wouldn't do as well as others, probably, but overall, yeah.
I just have an example for you, Steve.
Yeah.
So English is definitely not my first language, but I'm fluent in English, so I'm happy to continue collaborating in English. But there are some phrases in Ukrainian which I cannot translate into English just because it doesn't make sense. But if, for example, you're fluent in Ukrainian, I will just spend 99.9% time speaking English, and then here is the phrase, and you would understand me. So yeah. In this case, I would prefer virtual Steve, because we can keep switching languages.
And there's other things too that are kind of nice when you think of things like languages. As you noticed, I toggled on the switch so that it showed me what it heard me saying as I was saying it. And that, as somebody, let's say you're strongly accented and you're speaking with this, is this good or bad? Well, one thing is you can see what it's hearing. And you can literally see that, no, oh, I didn't say that word quite right. It thought I said whatever. I have to pronounce it a little more clearly. And in fact, I think it does better penetrating languages than humans do generally. But I think it also has certain advantages of being able to, like it could just say it in Ukrainian, maybe, and it'll get it. Tom, please.
Hey, thank you. And definitely interesting. And I'm very impressed with all the stats here, right? So, see, the question which I was, actually, one was the language question already Aina asked. The other piece was, given that the AI is, I mean, the translation shouldn't be a problem, right?
Right.
If I want to translate it. But now, where is this foundation built on? Is it ChatGPT or what is it built on?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you something. I'm just going to close the door here.
Okay.
And while Steve was doing that, I'm going to challenge the audience. So based on the information you heard, which Steve would you prefer to collaborate in future? The human Steve or the virtual Steve, knowing all of the benefits of the virtual Steve? Please feel free to speak up or just answer in chat.
The virtual Steve,
it depends if he's buying coffee.
Yeah, there you go. The virtual Steve, by the way, is limited to being an office hour bot right now, so it's not quite as interesting, I hope, as me. If you try to talk to virtual Steve about, my dating history or anything like that, you'll find that it's very professional, very good at saying, whatever. In fact, what I would add to this list of sort of ways it's better than me is it's always polite. It's always friendly. It's always in a good mood. There's been an interesting with another agent people that I've been talking to. They came up with an idea that I think is fascinating. They're working with schools and they have their agent occasionally offer to tell dad jokes. They're teaching math to kids, and they're like, after the kids have been through some tough thing, would you like to hear a joke? And they're just bad dad jokes that it got from the internet somewhere. Apparently, students love that. They love that they have silly little jokes interspersed with their reading. And of course, there's no end to these dad jokes. So you can, bring in you can really shape the style of the interaction and make it one that's warm and that's comfortable. And that's important when people are starting to deal with AI with that suspicious kind of, approach they have, that they leave the conversation feeling like, hey, that was good. They're also self-respecting by the, I wanted to just get to your question, Tom, sorry. It's essentially ChatGPT or some other LLM. Different ones are depending on the specific task, but it's basically ChatGPT with, text to speech and speech to text. And the one part that's unique, as much as we can, we use things that are out there because those things just keep getting better. And so then what we're using keeps getting better. But we do have this unique emotion sensing system, which, I don't know how much. Yeah, let's take a little foray. We'll see how much.
So as you switch there, there's the one question or one other concern, which I don't know. So this is a great thing to alleviate the anxiety, right?
Yes.
But is there a risk of dependence, or are we seeing the kids being better interacting in the real world? What is that feedback?
So this is a critical question, especially for our group, because our ultimate goal is to get students interacting with each other, talking to each other, which they don't do. They're scared to do. And we're all over this. And the idea originally was, okay, when there's social anxiety, you try to create a hierarchy from what's the least anxious thing to something that's high anxiety. And the least anxious way to start them talking is through AI. So that was our notion. Here, there's no fear of judgment. They constantly worry that the people they're talking to are judging them. AI doesn't judge you. And so that was our notion. Let's get them comfortable and let's get them learning how to have a conversation here. But to your point, there's a critical next step. What do you do from there? Because if you stop there, now they're just going to say, oh, I'd rather talk to an AI all the time than a human. So I'm going to put that on hold for a second, but come back to that. I do want to show you one unique aspect, and I'll try to make this sort of a little bit humorous. I'll toggle the conversation. So notice, by the way, when he starts, he's got a nice little smiley face here. Everything's great. All right, Steve, I think you're a complete idiot, man.
Ouch. I'm here to help. So if there's something I can do better, I'd really like to know.
I doubt you could provide any help at all. You don't have a clue. I don't think you could start a fire with two sticks.
I understand. Frustration can really boil over. Let me know if there's anything specific on your mind and we can try to tackle it together, okay?
So I'm not going to keep browbeating him, but I could. You might have noticed his face changed. It's got an emotion system that I can drive it into emotional states. And so one of the things we've done is we've made it self-respecting. If you keep abusing it, it will stop talking to you at some point. So we want people to learn you can't just abuse these things. But it also has that emotional reactivity. And so there I'm just showing it kind of getting annoyed with me, but that makes the conversations feel fluid. And that's the core part. So what do we have that's, unique or interesting? It's that emotional sensing system. The other parts are bits we've just brought together for the most part. Okay, so let's jump back to the formal for a little bit, even though we're having a good time with this, and just say, okay, so what we're suggesting here is that you think of these agents as new employees, and we get right down to the notion of how you kind of work with them, and how you maybe compensate them and how you assess them. So the notion is, okay, is there an IP issue with having multiple books programmed in the backend? So it's not, well, okay, we can go nuts with that IP issue. There's certainly an IP issue. But, and people are having this argument with AI in general about, does it really have the right to be leveraging other people's work in the way that, wow, we could have a whole talk on that. Let's just say there is. Did you want to chime in?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm loving this. I'm so excited. And I'm pulling up, I'm on a pilot here at Queen's where I'm working on building a bot. And I'm like, can I feed in every intro psych book that I have access to? Is somebody going to come after me here?
Well, you don't have to, though, because it's kind of already there. So, when you do any like a ChatGPT has access to every bit of psychological knowledge that's been put online. And it all tends to be, especially for intro psych, it all tends to be very convergent. All textbooks say that maybe they have slightly different terminology, but it's not like one textbook defines concept X as this and another one defines it as that.
Right.
That's when AI can get into trouble. Right. But for basic material, it tends to be pretty good. But let's take that.
Okay.
So you don't have to feed it the textbook. And you might get in trouble from publishers if you do.
Yeah. Okay. That's really what I was wondering is as you're curating. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry for derailing.
No problem. Okay, I'm going to come back to police in a second. So yeah, how do we think of these people? So the first thing is that, so many people think of computers as infallible and not making mistakes. And it's important to start by realizing these AI agents are stochastic. They're random. They will make errors. They will not answer the same question in the same way twice. You're never really sure where they're going, which is why they make me laugh all the time, because I'm like, what the heck? Where did you go there? That's different. But they're a lot like humans. So it's better to think of these agents in more human terms than to think of them as a computer. And when we do that, it sort of connects with a few issues. So the first thing is, are you worried that they're giving false information? Well, you should be, depending on where you use them, and how you use them. So just as you would if you were hiring a new employee, you should have somebody in charge of these agents who is doing regular performance evaluations, especially early on. And so to make sure, you run them through the paces as much as possible. It's really good to have a flagging system built in. So if somebody's interacting with these agents and they feel they've been weird or inappropriate or wrong, that they can flag so that you can go back and check on that. And then you want to tweak. And you want to tweak and make sure you're getting these accuracies resolved. This is just like, if we hired a new person, they would make some mistakes as well. And so what we want to do is really kind of hone that down a little bit. If we can't, then we fire them, right? If they literally cannot do the job to our satisfaction, then they fire them. And this is the sort of mentality we have. I want to. Okay, I'm going to let Brian. I know Brian and Blaze are chatting away there, and there's long loops, so I'll let you run with that one. So that's one notion. What am I? I guess this is they're just evaluating the agent. I guess I'm not sure what I'm implying by that slide. Okay, and it's not just the age. So I've kind of highlighted Virtual Steve, and now I'm expanding, but I want to expand a little bit. We've got support from our dean at UTSC. to try to use AI in ways that enhance student learning, enhance student well-being. So one of the things we are doing is, of course, proliferating the virtual Steves now. So for a lot of, especially our big first-year classes where we know the information it gives tends to be really accurate, it seems to provide a nice additional, now we're starting to call these parallels, because it's kind of like you're a student in a course, you got your traditional course, but then parallel to that, you've got this agent who's there to help you at any step along the way, negotiate the process. So we're going to have a bunch of those. Tom, did you want to jump in on that?
No, actually, sorry. I was just going to the one before, and I think it touched on it here. So the evaluation. Do you have, would you be touching on how you would evaluate a bot? Like, is it accuracy or whatever it is, yeah?
Yeah, you would actually do something like, and you will see this, in fact, if you look in detail at this disclaimer here, you will see somewhere that it says we're keeping these. Where does it say it? That's kind of funny, that we're keeping these transcripts. So first of all, it's completely anonymous. We have no information about the student. We may be changing that. We may be having students come in through a login, which allows the AI to now get to know the student. In fact, they could even do a profile, and that might allow us to personalize learning. So there's a trade-off between anonymity. You see there's an option for feedback, but what we usually say, and it should be there somewhere, I'm just not.
So I think the screen you're showing is your slide deck, and I think you're referring to a different screen. Am I right?
You're seeing Talk Lab right now, right?
No, I'm seeing your slide deck, the case study.
Oh my God, you guys haven't been seeing the virtual Steve at all, I don't think. Shoot. I should have been doing my desktop.
Unless you're just
this is the Talk Lab. So you guys weren't seeing this, which is annoying. I'll just do a quick little interaction to show you more. Just if I show the conversation, start the conversation, I wanted you to see his face.
Hey, hi, please have a seat.
Which always starts happy until you say you're the biggest idiot.
Right.
Could you say a bit more about what you're referring to?
You being an idiot? I have to say more than that. You're just an idiot.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I've upset you in any way. My aim is to be helpful, so let me know how I can assist you better.
Well, geez, I haven't upset you enough. You're still smiling. What's wrong with you? Are you stupid as well as being an idiot?
I understand that you might be frustrated or upset.
Okay. Normally his mouth would change and such, but you see there's a transcript here. So it's down here somewhere. Here it is. Text-based transcripts of conversations are kept. So we basically say we're keeping them for a period of time, 30 days. They're anonymous, but this becomes part of our evaluation to actually look and make sure it's saying the right things, doing the right things. And of course, there's also this feedback option for whoever's using it if they want to, if they experience something and want us to know. And students are told this is AI, it'll mess things up. You know what AI is about. Please help us to get it right. Yeah. Yeah. So we would use things like that. So yeah, at UTSC, we have, a bunch of these going for courses. We're starting to work with the registrar's office to provide. So right now, for example, if you're a student coming in and you go to the website and you got a question that you can't find the answer to, you can send an email. And then you'll eventually get a response back. But imagine you could just click a button right there and talk to an agent who could sort it through with you and give you the advice you need. And if that agent was friendly and respectful and parents could use it as well, suddenly it allows us to do a much more immediate, effective response. Now, here's the sort of interesting one. We have a French class. This is almost getting back to sort of Ina's point a little bit, where they want to allow students to practice speaking French with a non-judgmental AI partner. So can they just work with the bots much like we're thinking for social anxiety? Yeah, absolutely. A great practice environment. And then there's sort of these what we say little things, but you start to think about it. Imagine I could create a virtual me, and I can, that monitors my emails and how I respond to it. I could even feed my old responses to emails. And there may be, a class of my emails where I'm just saying the same thing to the same question every time. And then depending on the level of oversight you might want, you could get to a point, if you trust it enough, where you say, you answer those ones, maybe just tell me about them, and just save the emails that you don't really know how to answer right now. And it's me continually looking for patterns in my behavior that it can replicate and take off my desk. So I come in and I've got 5 emails to answer, not 30, which could make a difference. And then, you know, this is really, and I want to make this point with one other example that gets back to Tom's point earlier. It's also the question of, can you do things with AI that we just couldn't do before? And were there, in fact, issues in what we were doing that we thought were unsolvable that become solvable? This is where the voodoo is a little bit, the creative thought, where you really have to be willing to kind of think about things in new ways, but it really provides some exceptional opportunities. So yes, what if students get more comfortable just talking to AIs and they don't want to talk to each other? That's not good. We want them to learn to talk to each other. One of the best ways we kind of force them to do that, and we think of it this way sometimes, of sort of benevolently putting them together and making them do something that's good for them. And teamwork is like that, but teamwork doesn't work very well the way it is right now. Always some member of the team is late or isn't participating or whatever. They annoy the rest of the team. The team goes to the professor and says, this is going on. And that annoying person tells the professor, no, I'm not being annoying. I'm being perfectly good. And the professor has no idea who to believe, who to trust, and so doesn't want teamwork. So we have professors that don't want to give it. We have students that don't want to do it. It's probably the best thing we could do if we could do it well. There's so much value to learn in this. All these soft skills of interacting as a team, you guys know in corporate situations how important it is to have, effective working teams. But they don't like it. Students don't like it. Professors don't like it. But could we do it better? Is there an opportunity to do it better? So one notion we have, and it's great for all you project managers, imagine every team gets an AI that hangs out. And there's a number of levels. We're starting to play with the very first level, which we call the fly on the wall. So initially, the AI just pays attention to everything the group does, who did it, when they did it. And maybe that's even enough to let the students know the professor now has eyeballs. Okay, they now know what's going on. So whatever, but just know the professor knows. That alone might help teamwork be better. But what if we could make this AI, early on at least, a really good project manager that kind of worked with the team, organized roles, suggested tasks, had a timeline that they all agreed to, then notified them on the timeline, hey, Steve, you're supposed to have your part to the group by whatever, and we're all going to meet and do X. And so what if early on, the highly competent project manager was there to guide them, walk them through it, and then over the course of their education, this entity kind of fades into the background so that we eventually say, now you guys have to figure out how to do that yourself. But early on, it will guide the process of getting these humans interacting with each other in effective ways. That would be a notion of how, you can use the AI to go beyond just being comfortable with AI and start to push them to have that experience with human interactions. One other example, Toronto Zoo. Okay, we're working with the Toronto Zoo. If you go to the otter exhibit, you'll find one of our AIs there, which I could talk about, but I wanted to talk about the other example. I don't have it. I want to do one other example here that really kind of is pushing us forward. You guys probably know that multiple choice testing is hugely widespread. What you may not know is it's the worst way to measure learning there is. It's a terrible assessment tool for measuring learning. It's only good because it's got logistic benefits. You can use it anywhere, anytime. It gives you a score really fast, nice quantitative measure, but it measures learning really shallowly. It doesn't measure things like skills very well. There's all this important stuff that it cannot capture. What if, after a learning experience, you are then interrogated by an AI in real time, an oral exam, which is the best way to assess learning, but it doesn't scale. Right? The best way is to have some expert in front of you really interrogating you and saying, let me find out what you learned. But in a human way, that doesn't scale. If we can create an AI that can do those assessments in a holistic, fair way, we can get rid of multiple choice tests and we can have really effective assessments of learning. That's an example how in our space, you sit back and go, oh, hang on, this is a Thomas Kuhn thing now. This is revolutionizing. This is completely changing the way we do things for the better. So that's the sort of excitement that comes out of here. I was going to mention some of that with the zoo. We're working with the zoo to do things with a virtual zookeeper and to collect data in rich ways through conversations that, people might not like questionnaires, but if it's just part of a conversation, they might be willing to give you some data. And you can even bring the zookeepers to school, allowing the zoo now to have outreach. So that's examples from the zoo of how it can do new things. This is really the point. We're going to go to discussion here, but these are the main points. So AI is disrupting the traditional way, but it's also opening these opportunities for new ways of working. A lot of people are worried about being replaced. There's good reason to worry about some of that, but this notion of harnessing AI to do things that sort of add to your workforce, expand to your workforce, and allow you to do more. Oh, I know the part I didn't talk about. There's one notion that says we should pay these AIs. So if you are in a sales group, let's say, and you get given an AI that's part of your team now, if you can use that AI to increase your productivity, your output, then that AI gets paid. But of course, the AI doesn't get paid. The money that would be paid to your AI goes to the rest of the team. So you can kind of incentivize the humans for working effectively by the AIs. If they can work with the AIs to increase their productivity, then they're going to get rewarded for that. So that's an interesting notion of how you can incentivize it a little bit. We should think of them as new employees, overseeing them, evaluating them, tweaking them. Oh, and there's the paid part sneaking in there. And, the key to these would be the ability to see those opportunities. This is where the real visionaries in the various fields work. What are the problems? What are the sticking point that we always thought we just couldn't get around, like multiple choice tests? We have to use them. There's no better way. Is there maybe now a better way? And this is, I think, where the real revolution is possible. And so it really means sort of, mobilizing those creatives in that space to think about AI and to see the potential ways of making things change. All right, so there's me. You can reach out to me at any time. Brian Harrington, by the way, would just be brian.harrington@utoronto.ca. So I'm the psychology guy on the team. He's the computer science guy on the team. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to reach out. We do have this company we're forming. It's not quite formed yet, but where we're trying to help corporations who are interested in seeing some of this vision to work towards that and to see how their business might be revolutionized. So if there's interest in that, that's fantastic as well. Otherwise, let's just chat. Any questions, any thoughts, whatever. I would love to have a nice discussion with the group of you.
I have been talking a lot, but if anybody has, they can go see. I do have a couple of questions, comments, and such.
All right, we'll take Tom up on his offer. Does anybody else want to jump in first, or shall we? I'll get the chat going too here, and feel free to jump in the chat too if you prefer. All right, I think the floor is yours, Tom.
All right, yeah, thank you. This was pretty interesting and informative. I've been like a lot of us here dabbling with certain of these AIs for a while. So I just came off a call before this, where they were showing videos being created from still photographs.
Yeah.
Something, yes, anyway. So one of the things you mentioned, the payment system, and I don't know if it's related to this whole thing. I think my question was something else, and that distracted me. So one of the risks there is, because the whole blockchain idea of, micro payments and all such, I think the the fear is that if you have an AI being paid, it will be very niche and it'll only do what it's supposed to do. Then how do you like? I think it'll just corner the work market, whatever you want to call it, because it can do it faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, I mean the concept I've heard. This is a concept that I originally just to be clear as to where this came from the Deputy Minister of Innovation from Alberta. He's floating around this notion of how to use AI as a workforce multiplier, and he has this idea of paying it. And the way that he described it was more unit based. So if your unit is about, let's say, marketing, and you have some way of quantifying how successful that unit is being, then you basically say, hey, we're adding this AI to your group. And the humans are going to be like, okay, what can it do? Whatever. But if you can effectively figure out how to work with this AI to increase that productivity of your group, then the pay the AI, I mean, the AI isn't going to get it, but the pay associated with the AI is that difference. It's that increase. It's that, so that if people just ignore the AI and don't do anything, keep doing things the way they always did, there'll probably be no impact. And I think the payment is more about incentivizing the other employees to actually kind of leverage the AI and to see what it's doing is bringing value to them and their unit. And so I think that's as much, you'd almost have two problems to solve there. I think one is, what is this? Like, it's easy for us, the virtual office hours, that's a role. We can just define this role. You do that. So one question is, what is that role you would give that agent? And then the second is, how would others interact with that agent effectively to increase, whatever they're trying to do. So again, with our student situation, I think the roles are so clear that it's quite easy to kind of create that. And I think in a corporate context, especially the virtual Steve is sort of doing what I'm doing, but better and 24/7. That's one model, take something somebody does and do it better. But I've heard models like the following. I've heard that a lot of corporates are sort of siloed. And so your sales thing really well, but when you now have an HR kind of issue, you're like, and so you can go over to HR, you can talk to some human, but what if there was an agent available that was your bridge to HR? And that agent knew your area really well, knew the HR area really well, and could potentially help you interface. Maybe you don't even have to go to HR. Maybe that can solve your problem for you. So I've seen them kind of thought of as in the gaps like that. Or maybe it can say, oh no, okay, you do have a problem. You have to speak to this person in HR. They are the right contact. And so it can guide you. And now you at least go in feeling like you've done a bit of homework. You know what you're talking about. You know who to talk to. Yeah.
Because one of my thoughts has been, because I was discussing something about AI and agents in manufacturing, bringing that concept to what you just mentioned. I think to me, when I look at it, again, going back to Project Management 101, you need to look at the organization as system as a whole. Right. In the system, figure out which of the pieces you can AI agentic, or you can model into AI, then some pieces have to be a human. So like to your point, you can take it up to a point and then say, talk to so-and-so, or these are the two options you may have, depending in HR example, right? Yep. But again, going back to what the Google thing of Sergey Brin or somebody else said, you have these 90% experts in every little field. That comes your crossing of your organizations, which you just mentioned, where, you may have an expert here, an expert here. Now, if you cross them together, you might actually get the answer. Yep. So I think it is to be seen and to be built. But to me, I think the breakdown of the process becomes equally important, because thought has to go into it. Yep. If not, it might backfire and not give us the results we want.
Yeah, I agree.
That's my thought.
I agree. And I think the one additional complexity is you can look at the system as it is, the organization as it is, and say, what could AI do, or how could it augment but then the other trick is to say, is that the right system? Is there a better system? Does AI provide an opportunity to rethink this whole approach, which is sort of the multiple choice, kind of example there. I think that's where the mojo is, but I also think that's where the real challenge is. I think, Blaise, you wanted to jump in on?
Yeah, I think that, specifically from project management, Tom, I think that one of the interesting things with the virtual Steve, I think that sort of both shows like an opportunity and a challenge, I think, for business, is that thing that the virtual Steve was better at, right? Where it knew all of the, like you said, I don't remember the biology as well as, I don't remember every piece of domain expertise. So on the one hand, I think that how often do you watch say a product manager and a developer talking, and the developer really thinks that the system can already do something or can't do something, and the product manager says intuitively or based on another system I know, I don't agree, I don't think you're right. So the possibility of an agent being a source of truth there, I think, is very, very attractive. But I think one of the things that's a challenge for business is that oftentimes the challenge in the business world is that there's never a moment where you stop and codify that information. So virtual Steve has the benefit of all of the effort that the educational and academic system puts into years and years of structuring how all that corpus of knowledge about psychology is presented, right? And so that's very powerful. Sometimes you don't have that same structured content to work from, in your business situation. And I see that as an emerging thing, which a lot of people are talking about, is the importance of knowledge structuring becomes just more and more important,
Yeah.
You're taking my job, Blaise, now, because I'm a coach and I'm a corporate coach and a corporate mediator. So what you just described, they don't need me anymore.
No, so just to draw an example, in the corporate environment, I was talking to a bank the other day, and they all have mandate to use Copilot and everything else, but they are not still given the governance and given all the other rules, they're not ready to give the data between the departments. So now the co-pilot is not really giving anything of value.
Yeah, we're in that phase, right, where it's that little uncomfortable. Yeah, I mean, I would like to suggest I want to broaden your minds a little bit, because virtual Steve, I think it's a great example of some things, but it also starts to make you think that's. And so let me give you one other thought that we're working on, which is we're starting to do work around simulations with these. So one example is like de-escalation training with police officers, where we can create agents that are escalated, that are in the middle of some trauma, and our emotion system allows us to do this really well. And then the police officers have to talk them down. But imagine a sales structure like training. If we just think of training in general, imagine you're trying to train salespeople and you have a sales playbook for your organization. But of course, you have a new person you just hired, and they have to become fluent at sort of employing that playbook in an effective way. You can create a whole bunch of virtual customers for them to spend a lot of time interacting with. You can get some feedback scores on how well they're doing. You can give those customers traits of being, I hate cold calls, or I'm okay with cold calls, or whatever. You can vary how easy they are to interact with. And that's just an example where, you could maybe hire actors and pay a ton of money to try to do something similar, or you could do that. And so I think in professional development, there's opportunities as well. Think of the teamwork one where it's acting more as a project manager, the assessment one where it's acting more as an assessor. So it can be an information source, which is what Virtual Steve is, but there's also all these other opportunities to kind of think of how these could come in and increase, efficacy of a corporate situation.
And that's a great point, Steve, about the actors, because I've been running corporate courses on the negotiation subject. Yeah. And large enterprises, they helped me to hire 2 or 3 actors to actually help to practice, because when you practice like a student is practicing with student, it's a totally different feeling than you are practicing like with real life, but with an actor who can simulate the real life. But with the tools like that, I think it's the next level of corporate training.
Yeah. And even that teamwork thing that I described, like you have people working in teams all the time. How, if you kind of sat back and said, okay, when we bring together a bunch of employees to work in a team, how well are they doing? Would they benefit from having a virtual project manager in the room, organizing and structuring those interactions? Like maybe that isn't just something that should be used in universities. Maybe it's something, again, where it's a role that's not being filled right now. But you could bring in this guide to every interaction that kind of kept people on track and monitored, and maybe there's a role there too.
Yeah, and that's why I jumped into that when I heard you, Steve, because I'm from the corporate side, you're from the educational side, and I'm like, wow, we can actually bridge these two worlds and to make a good product for both.
Yeah. It's a joy for us, by the way. You notice the Toronto Zoo, we're now getting people interested in we're getting called into these organizations like, wow, this is something different. And they have an educational mandate, but they also have a community mandate. And so that notion that our virtual zookeepers could become part of school systems where, it's almost like the virtual school system visits the zookeeper visits the school, but now the students can interact. They could be asked to do projects where they have to interact with these things, and we can now sort of expand. And that was an important thing for them. It's down on our roadmap, but that's, an example how every organization structure, I think, is different. And being able to sit and think and work with somebody in that, because somebody like us can't come to a corporate structure and really have the understanding. We need, people who know that, but to think creatively and redesign stuff is a lot of fun.
Fun indeed, and it's already 1 p.m., so it's lots of fun having this conversation, but unfortunately we need to come back to our work life. So thank you everybody for spending your hour with us. Thank you real audience, virtual audience, and most of all, thank you Steve for this fantastic presentation. Thank you Brian for co-partnering with this, Blaise, and the rest. Thank you for an amazing chat running during the Steve's presentation, and stay tuned for our next topics. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Aina.